What exactly is Nehru's legacy? His Hindi-Chini Bhai Bhai slogan is promoting nepotism and dynasty in politics. In recent years, the policies and plans of India's first Prime Minister, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, have often sparked debate and discussions. Nehru's legacy came under scrutiny once again when the name of Nehru Memorial Museum and Library was changed to Prime Minister's Museum and Library Society by the Modi government. Angered by this move, Jairam Ramesh, the Congress General Secretary and the party's communication head, accused the government of tarnishing Nehru's legacy. This raises a few serious questions about the aspects of Nehru's legacy that Congress values so highly. What exactly is Nehru's legacy? Namaskar, I'm Shreyasa Vijay and you're watching The Big Debate. In today's episode, we will discuss Nehru's blunders in policy and governance that jeopardize the country's interest and continues to haunt the nation even today. His favorite so-called policy of existence, also codified as Panchsheel, a directionless foreign policy, his Hindi-Chini Bhai Bhai slogan, his stand in policies on Kashmir and building a network of highly inefficient PSUs often termed as white elephants. Should these be called legacy or failures? Is promoting nepotism and dynasty in politics an utter disrespect for the country's culture, traditions, and the values under the guise of covert modernism his legacy, or Nehru's betrayal to the nation? Let us first talk about Nehru's approach to the Kashmir issue and Article 370. After partition, the Pakistan army, disguised as tribal invaders, attacked Kashmir. At a time when the Indian army was working to drive out the Pakistani invaders from the entire Kashmir region, Nehru's action in Kashmir left a lasting wound on India. He ignored the advice of the senior political and administrative leadership of the country and instead sought help from the United Nations. This move allowed Pakistan to label Kashmir as a disputed territory. As a result, the Kashmir issue continued to inflict serious injury to Indian democracy, the development of Kashmir and the nation's integrity for over 70 years. An unfortunate outcome was the rise of Pakistan-backed terrorism, genocide and exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, attacks on security forces and government institutions. Nehru's second major mistake was denying Nepal's proposal to join India as a state after independence. King of Nepal, Tribhuvanveer Bikram Shah, had put forward the proposal to merge Nepal into the Indian Republic. However, short-sighted Nehru turned down the proposal, stating that Nepal was and should remain an independent nation. This incident once again came to light when former President Pranab Mukherjee in his autobiography revealed how Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was at fault for rejecting Nepal King Tribhuvanveer Bikram Shah's offer to make the Himalayan country a province of India. In the fourth volume of his autobiography titled The Presidential Years 2012 to 2017, former President Pranab Mukherjee wrote, interestingly, Nepal's king Tribhuvanveer Bikram Shah had suggested to Nehru that Nepal be made a province of India. But Nehru rejected the offer on the grounds that Nepal was an independent nation and must remain so. India is still facing the consequences of this foolish step with smacks of political immaturity and a lack of strategic thinking. India's arch-rival China has been reported to infiltrate Nepal's villages on the border, invest in its infrastructure and established a foothold along India's eastern border by collaborating with Nepal's communist leaders. Not recognizing Nepal's potential strategic and security significance for India was one of Nehru's major blunders. It is an open secret now how Nehru became India's first Prime Minister. Despite Gandhi's open support, the Congress party wanted to see Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel as Congress president and consequently as India's first Prime Minister. Patel was regarded by almost everyone in Congress party as a great administrator, organizer and a leader with his feet firmly on the ground. Many Congress leaders suspected Nehru of lacking political acumen and a vision for rebuilding India. However, destiny had something else in store and Nehru became the first Prime Minister. And Indian leaders' fear of Nehru came to the forefront once again when he rejected the proposal of Mir Ahmad Yar Khan seeking Balochistan's inclusion in India. According to a report by Times of India, Nehru lacked strategic foresight and hence refused Balochistan's accession to India. The report highlights an offer by the King or Khan of Kalat, Mir Ahmad Yar Khan, to accede to India. It says the Indian Prime Minister then turned down his offer. Khan was shocked after listening to VP Menon, former secretary in the ministry's press conference on All India Radio on March 27, 1948. His broadcast said that the Khan of Kalat was pressing India to accept Kalat's accession, but added that India would have nothing to do with it. It is believed that the next day Sardar Patel moved swiftly and contradicted the secretary, but the damage was done. Once again, Nehru failed to understand the strategic importance of Balochistan, where Pakistan is committing grave human rights violations today. Balochistan is said to be rich in natural resources. It has mines of precious metals like gold and is home to Pakistan's largest natural gas field. In recent years, after China's entry, the production of gold ores has significantly increased in Balochistan. Nehru's letters from August 1955 reveal how he rejected the American proposal to secure a permanent seat for India in the United Nations Security Council just to please China. Had India been granted a permanent seat in the United Nations, its global stature would have been elevated. Surprisingly, Nehru rejected it without any negotiation. This unfortunate decision reflects a catastrophic blunder. As far as cordial relations with China are concerned, the goal of Nehru remains unfulfilled to this day. Various documents indicate that Nehru's friendship with China was mostly a one-sided love affair that obviously bore no fruit. It was a lack of diplomatic savviness that led to a disastrous war for India in 1962. China's ambition in Asia resulted in a deadly war with India, which obviously was not prepared both on military and diplomatic fronts. This war caused heavy casualties on the Indian side. Unfortunately, more than 3,250 Indian soldiers lost their lives in the war. Then China's Prime Minister Zhou Enlai took advantage of Nehru's lenient attitude and considered Nehru's slogan of Hindi-Chini Bhai Bhai as India's weakness. Even today, after 60 years of that war, China maintains its grip over India's vital Aksai Chin region. China has occupied an area of 37,244 square kilometers of Indian territory. Jawaharlal Nehru declined the American proposal to assist India in developing nuclear technology. According to India's former Foreign Secretary Maharaja Krishna Rajgotra, had Jawaharlal Nehru accepted US President John F. Kennedy's offer of assisting India detonate a nuclear device much before China did in 1964, India need not have had to make desperate efforts to enter the nuclear suppliers group later. Rajgotra, in his book A Life in Diplomacy, mentioned if Nehru had accepted the offer, not only India would have tested the nuclear device first in Asia before China, it would have also deterred China from launching its war of 1962 and even warned about Pakistan's malicious plans of war in 1965. In the book, Rajgotra notes that Kennedy made the extraordinary gesture towards India after learning through American intelligence in the late 1950s that China's nuclear program was progressing towards a weapons detonation in 1964. After India gained independence in 1947, Nehru requested Portugal to peacefully secede from the state of Goa, which Portugal outrightly rejected. Thereafter, as he always did, Nehru approached the United Nations with the same request, but the Portuguese again refused. Eventually, in 1961, when Portuguese forces fired on Indian fishing boats, leading to a fisherman's death, Indian army swiftly took control of Goa. After 36 hours of aerial, naval and ground actions, Portugal surrendered Goa back to India. Though this action should have been taken much earlier, but due to Nehru's hesitation in reclaiming Goa, the Goans had to wait for 14 years to achieve freedom. India had always followed a tradition of a free and open market economy for centuries, which could have been revived after the Britishers plundered India in 1947. However, Nehru took a different approach and adopted Soviet-style economic policies. These policies exacerbated income inequality and unjustly attached a negative perception to entrepreneurs. These policies were responsible for poisoning the minds of Indians to consider entrepreneurs as unethical. When the Cold War was at its height, the United States was actively looking for allies in Asia. Nehru, however, distanced India from the US and pursued an impractical policy of non-alignment and neutrality towards the superpowers of US and USSR. Until 1961, Nehru supported the establishment of the non-aligned movement. Subsequently, the US formed a close alliance with Pakistan, an unholy alliance that still holds strong today. India then had no choice but to cooperate with the USSR, thereby defeating the sole purpose of the non-aligned movement and damaging Indo-US relations for decades. The Congress Party has long been criticized for dynastic politics, and the foundation of this dynastic tradition was laid by Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India, had planted the seeds of nepotism by making his only daughter, Indira Gandhi, the Congress president. Nehru's father, Motilal Nehru, the first member of this political dynasty, served as the Congress president before independence in 1919 and 1928. Jawaharlal Nehru took over the reins of the Congress from his father in 1929 and 30 at the Lahore session. In the year 1936 and 1937, Pandit Nehru again became the Congress president. Being the first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Nehru held the post of Congress president from 1951 to 1954. After this, Nehru's daughter Indira Gandhi became the president of Congress for the first time in the year 1959. This tradition of nepotism by Nehru continues in Congress even today. Unfortunately, this tradition has deeply embedded itself in Indian politics, causing significant damage to the democratic process. Today, almost every state party is plagued by dynastic politics. Nehru always projected himself as a champion of liberal democracy. But was he really so? Well, a closer examination of his actions reveal a more complex reality. When Nehru proposed measures for building trust with Pakistan, he had to face intense criticism from news outlets, including The Organizer. In a furious response, he resorted to amending the constitution with the intent to suppress dissenting voices like The Organizer, showcasing a rather authoritarian inclination. Not only this, the year 1957 witnessed the rise of a communist government in Kerala led by EMS Namboodiripad. However, then the Congress government was in power at the centre under the leadership of Nehru. Exploiting this advantage, Nehru toppled Kerala's communist government under the pretext of the freedom struggle in 1959. This move was purportedly motivated by the Congress party's significant defeat in the state. His foreign policy blunders also played a substantial role in fostering communist ideologies and contributing to the rise of Islamic extremism within India. Had Nehru taken a more balanced approach and prioritized India's national interest over his affiliations with communism and minority appeasement, the nation's stature might have flourished even further. Intoxicated by power, Nehru never realized that he was sowing the seeds of troubles for India in the coming future. And history will always hold Nehru accountable for the consequences of his decisions.